All right. Greetings, everyone. This is Eric Stewart from Fishing Fanatics Podcast, and today I have Hunter Sales with me. He's Bassmaster Open EQ angler and the head coach of Carson-Newman University. How you doing, Hunter?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be on. I appreciate you taking the time to interview me. I think we got some awesome stuff to go over.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to jump right into it. And the one question I always like asking, just kind of break the ice here and kind of let you talk a little bit, is how did you get into fishing at the start? You know, a lot of people have different things about, fishing with their parents or, a couple mentors that taught them kind of the ropes. But what's kind of your story about how you got into fishing?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty cool story, and there's not very many people that know this. But so, I grew up fishing some tournaments with my dad. We had a pond there on my papa's farm. I'd catch some bass, and I'll deviate for a second. My papa hated bass, right? It was always like he was diehard catfish, and all the bass did was would just be a menace to the catfish in his mind. And so every time we caught a bass, he wanted us to get rid of it. He didn't want the bass in his pond. And so me and one of my brothers, we found my only brother, we found a creek that was on the property. And so instead of just throwing the bass out, we would take it down to the creek just to relocate it. And so that's kind of how fishing got started. But when it really took a turn for me, we have a camper over on Cherokee Lake, and I'd spent all the summers over there with my mom and my dad, my brother and sister. And one of my best friends growing up, they had a camper there also. Now my dad had sold our aluminum boat and bought a pontoon at mom's urging. And so, I wasn't a very happy kid. But we found a boat that somebody had left. It was an old plastic pond prowler from Bass Pro Shops. And we had found it on the bank, and it had holes all in it. I mean, it was clearly something that somebody just thrown away. And it would float for about 10 minutes before we had to take it back to the shore and drain all the water out of it. And so we were out there one day, and me and my best friend, and we'd fish out of it for 10 minutes, maybe catch one, maybe not, and then drag it back up on the shore, let it drain, go back out and do it again. Well, Papa saw that, and for Christmas that year, he bought me a brand new 8-foot pond prowler from Bass Pro. And so, didn't have to worry about it sinking anymore. And fished on it with a little trolling motor, took it all across Cherokee Lake, and then ended up, how life has it, buying, selling, trading, started slowly upgrading my boats. But that's kind of what got it kicked off for me.
I love that, man. Just bootstrap into the ground. Boat has a hole in it. That's fine. Let's just go fishing, man. That's what it's all about.
We just love to catch a fish. And I actually hadn't even thought about that story in so long. So I'm glad you asked me about that.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear little stuff like that, especially kind of reminds me a little bit of how I got into fishing, climbing underneath the fence and just literally fishing a little runoff pond. Just little stuff like that, man. It's just what makes it. And then you get hooked. You catch your first fish on the topwater or whatever that one fish is, and you just never forget it for the rest of your life.
Fishing is so dang, and I still love it, but it's so dang high stress at the level that we're doing it at now that talking about those times, honestly, that brings back why you do it, the love for fishing. It didn't matter what you were fishing out of, where you were. It's just that, being able to catch a dang bass. That's really what started everything for me. And I'm glad you asked that, man. That was awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now, looking all these years later, you're a head coach for a fishing club, for the fishing university, Carson-Newman University, a.k.a. Eagle Anglers, right?
Yep, that's us.
So tell me a little bit about that organization, because I was doing some research. You guys are pretty successful, I could say.
Yeah, we actually just got back from Lake Hartwell. The Association of Collegiate Anglers had their national championship, which also concluded the year-long School of the Year race, which tallies up all the major events through Bassmaster, Major League Fishing, and the ACA events. And we ended up third in the country. And so that's everybody, D1, D2, NAIA, everything. And so that was our school best third place finish in that School of the Year race. This is pretty impressive too. We sent 5 boats down there. We had a 2nd place, a 9th place, a 12th, a 13th, and a 37th. So all 5 boats that we sent out of the 200 boats, did really, really well. Drake Hemby and Ewing Minor actually finished 2nd. So a really cool week. But we've got 26 people on the team this year. We're going to have right at 30 next year from places from Montana to Florida. And so, the school gives scholarships when we travel. We pay for 100% of everything. We've got boat storage on campus. Man, we got it going on. I'm pretty proud of it.
No, that's awesome. I probably a lot of the listeners here, college fishing just seems so new, right? Because when I was growing up, it was always baseball. Like my goal is to play baseball in college, and I did for a little bit. But like for you, was you growing up, was it like I want to be a collegiate fisherman and then I want to move on to the pros, or like for your story, how did that kind of end up being like now you're the head coach of this university?
Yeah, that's another cool story. So I actually played baseball at Carson-Newman. I played for 3 years, and I didn't get a lot of playing time. I only had 2 at bats through those 3 years, and so I didn't plan on deviating. I wanted to play all 4 years, but I wasn't very happy with how much I was playing. Obviously, as a competitor, you want to play every inning of every game. And so what actually happened is my junior year after the season, Bassmaster brought a college event to Cherokee Lake, which is less than 5 minutes from our campus. And so the final day weigh-in was on campus. And so our VP of enrollment, his name was Aaron Porter. He's since left, but he was a big fisherman and had sent out some emails. Do we have any students who would be interested in competing in this? And so me and one of my other best friends, who now works at school as the controller, we kind of blew the server up that weekend. Like, yeah, we'd love to fish. Like, get us in it. And that was actually the first tournament I'd fished without my dad there, and we got our dang butts kicked. But essentially, that's kind of what kick-started the college team, and it led to me putting together a 5-year plan that summer, taking it to the CFO. She approved everything, and she was like, would you stick around and coach it? And I was like floored, because I didn't expect to have, I expected her to laugh at me and tell me to get out of the room, But that Carson-Newman is a special place, man. So she approved everything, and then a year and a half later, I had a full-time job working as a fishing coach. So kind of got thrown into it.
Dude, that's insane. It was just literally a random email one day. You're sitting there looking at your school email, probably seeing what assignments are due. You're just like,
Dude, honest to God, it was one of the first school emails that I'd opened probably the whole semester. And so it was, it was God 100% putting that email. For whatever reason, I was like, man, I'm going to open the student announcements. We'd never done that. And so, yeah, I mean, the whole way through, he had a plan for it. I wasn't smart enough, to do any of that, but God had this plan for Carson-Newman. We're right in between 2 great fisheries. We had a university that was invested in it, and man, it just took off, and it's been a fun ride to be a part of, for sure.
That's got to be a pretty cool feeling too, to sit there with the CFO and it's like, yeah, we'll prove it all, and then do you want to coach it? Like, that's got to feel amazing. Like, I can't even kind of wrap my words around like what that's got to feel like. So you started the whole program there?
Yeah. Yeah, me and the guy who works as a controller, his name's Tristan Stallsworth. We were the first 2 that started fishing. And the plan was, included things, scholarships, travel, boat barns, things like that. And it was kind of all contingent on, okay, if you can recruit 10 kids, we'll approve all of this. And so that first year we were out recruiting, essentially the kids we were recruiting, there wasn't really anything promised to them. It was, hey, if we can get this going, this is what it'll look like. And so we actually just graduated that group last May. And so my relationship with that group was incredible, because I felt like they had taken a chance and gambled on something that, we don't know if it would have worked out or not. And, 2 of those guys, become some of my best friends, and all of them. One of the guys we actually hired, who works at Carson-Newman now, we actually have a kayak fishing team. So he's the head coach of the kayak fishing team now. And so it was pretty cool to watch it start. His name's Jacob Frazier.
Very cool. So tell me about the recruiting process. Do you just go out to like local tournaments, or is there like high school tournaments that you go to, and you got your little clipboards there out on another boat writing notes? What's that look like?
Man, so we've got a conference room there at school, and we've got a giant whiteboard. We've got, for next year, we've got probably 30 names on it already. We're looking at people across the country, and a lot of it is, and this is going to kind of blow your mind probably, but one thing that we've focused on is like, okay, we do pretty well on this type of fisheries. We don't do well when we go up north. So we need to recruit a few northern guys and try to plug that hole so we can spread that knowledge throughout the team. When we go up there, we'll have somebody that knows what the heck's going on. So in this year's class, we got 2 northern guys, 2 guys from Florida. Andrew Turner's coming from Montana. So we really try to get a really wide range of skills and try to mesh them together. When we have our fall tournaments, we pair different people together every week. And so they're constantly fishing with new people. learning these skills, and kind of meshing it all together. So that's kind of the model we take with it. But yeah, some of it's going to high school tournaments, some of it's through social media, some of it's through word of mouth. It's kind of a big blend of things just to find the best kids we can.
It's pretty cool. Like kind of mix and match it, right? It's like when you look at like a baseball team, you got the starting pitcher, but then you also got the guys in the bullpen that complement that starting pitcher. It's kind of the same thing with the bass.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you don't want to have all right-handed hitters. You want to have a big strong lefty in the lineup or something. And so, we'll bring in a few kids, and it's challenging for a kid from Florida. We had one kid this year who's done really well, but it's a culture shock when you bring them to East Tennessee and all they've ever seen is lily pads and reeds, and all of a sudden we're fishing 40-foot deep, rock piles for smallmouth. But ultimately, it makes him a better angler too, because it forces him to learn a different skill set, a different style of fishing, essentially.
Yeah, especially if one of his goals is to be on the open, like you are. I've talked to a lot of guys like that. It's like, I just had to get used to it. Like up fishing up north, or northerners fishing down south. It's like just completely different game. But so in 2022, you guys won first place in the Bassmaster College Classic, right?
We did, yes sir. Yep. Hayden.
What does that experience feel like as a coach? And if you want to shout out the people that won it too, go ahead.
Yeah, it was Hayden Gaddis and Ben Coley. Hayden Gaddis is a local kid from Seymour, Tennessee, and then Ben Coley is from Rockwall, Texas. They're actually both going into their 5th year of fishing. Ben's in his master's, and Hayden's just on the slow track. But they're both really great anglers. You could argue one of the top teams in college fishing history right now. They've won all kinds of major events, but so they won on Lake Kiowee in South Carolina, where the Classic was on Hartwell. And so they actually weigh in at the I don't remember the name of the arena, but they weigh in at the Classic arena right before the final day weigh-in for the pros. And so, it's an awesome environment. There's a ton of people there. And so to watch them, hoist that trophy there in front of everybody, it was kind of a surreal moment where it's like, especially for me, being here from the inception with two guys. Yeah, it was actually fishing in these shirts from the bookstore. We didn't have jerseys. We fished in these Columbia shirts that the bookstore donated to us. So coming from there to having two guys weigh in on the Classic stage and hoist this big trophy, it was very surreal. And those guys, backstage doing interviews. A couple of them, they signed a few, sponsored deals afterwards. It was a really, really cool moment where a lot of the hard work and stuff had paid off, not only for me, but for them also. They worked super hard to make it happen.
Business owners and marketing professionals in the Philly area, Bad Rhino takes the overwhelm out of digital marketing. With tailored digital marketing services, from social media management to SEO and PPC advertising, our expert team navigates the complexities of the digital ad space for your business. Let Bad Rhino lead you to success. Visit badrhinoinc.com and let's take your business to new heights. Bad Rhino, we do digital marketing so you don't have to.
Yeah, definitely. Do you guys have like practices, and like how much are you actually coaching instead of just being like, hey guys, go ahead and fish, go figure it out?
So honestly, that's kind of a misconception. As a college fishing coach, there is a little bit of technique coaching that happens. But it's mainly, somebody's having problems. They come to you, hey, I'm losing a lot of fish on this technique. Is there a hook that you recommend? And it's kind of like, okay, what line are you throwing? What rod are you throwing? And we kind of look at what's going on to try to offer suggestions. But a lot of the skill-based stuff, they're really, really good at. You don't have to coach that because everybody has their own style. For me, what goes into it, we do have weekly inter-squad tournaments. So we go out once a week and we have we'll pair people up with different partners and let them go fish. And a lot of it is, you're molding culture. You're teaching the business side of the industry. You're teaching the mindset that you have to be successful in fishing, and trying just to put people in a situation that allows them to grow and become a successful angler. It's more of that, making sure they have every opportunity and they're going to the places they need to develop and things like that. It's more of that than it is actually sitting down and saying, now here's how you throw a crankbait, or whatever. Most of these guys that we're recruiting, if we do a good job, most of them have a pretty, fair understanding of things like that.
Yeah. It's more of like a life skill kind of, mentality type of game, right? Where it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Don't get down on yourself and all that. It's kind of a nice segue into my next question about you fishing the Opens this year, all 9 tournaments too. Change of format from last year, but tell me what it's like for you personally, going to all these different places, fishing, and then what kind of that mentality you have to carry that throughout each tournament as you travel.
Yeah, this year has been a bad year. If you look at statistically, I mean, I've had a rough year. But it's one of the mentalities that you're not in this sport, at least I'm not, for instant, success. I mean, you kind of have to have this mentality of, it's like any other sport. You be in the minor leagues for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and then you finally make it, and that's when you sign the big contracts. Fishing is pretty similar. Last year, I ended up 15th in points, and so if we would have been in the current format, taking 9, I would have been right around the game there. This year, I've struggled a lot more, but the first 4 opens we've been to, I had never been to any of those fisheries. And so, it is this mindset of like, you have to stay positive. You have to realize I'm learning, take away one thing here, one thing there that you can go back home and work on and get better. Because there's been a couple tournaments this year where, it wasn't necessarily like skill wise that I got beat, but I just missed the bus. I didn't understand what the fish were doing. I didn't practice the right way, different things like that. And so I'm a big believer in, taking notes, going back home and working on stuff and trying to put yourself in those situations where you can just kind of learn to get better. I don't know if that even answers your question, but
No,
I think that mentality just to keep learning and keep going forward is very important.
I think it definitely does, because I remember talking to guys like Gussie and the different stories that he had about, struggling in the beginning, or seeing other anglers kind of struggling, and then they just like kind of crumble and give up, because it is difficult, right? You're away from your family, you're spending these money in entry fees, and you're doing a bunch of stuff, and when you come out of the gate and you're not, kicking butt, and you're not kind of where you want to be, it's difficult to kind of get over that hump.
Yeah, it is. And that's one thing at college. I didn't have the luxury of fishing in college for, 4 years, to where I got to see a lot of these places and get used to traveling and get used to that side of things. And so, part of the hard lessons that I've had to learn on the Opens, part of that is what I'm trying to gear our program to teach these guys before they get thrown into the lion's den. I mean, the first time I went to Florida, I was fishing against Bobby Lane all of a sudden. I never had even seen the state of Florida. And so, I mean, that's a tough thing. If you get to go 2 or 3 times while you're in college, at least you feel a little bit, more familiar. I'll never forget that. My first Open, the first day of the first Open, I'm idling out. I think I was boat like 117. And so they go, you boat 116 from Mountain Home, Idaho, 6-time Angler of the Year champion, Brandon Polinick. Boom, he's out. From Blaine, Tennessee, Hunter Sales. So I go out. And then behind me, it's like 4-time Bassmaster Opens champion from Kissimmee, Florida, Bobby Lane, and I'm like, man, I'm in the dang lines then this morning, and so, but, I actually had a good tournament. That I think I just missed a check, finished like 42nd, and I'll never forget this, and this is not in any means a dig at those 2 guys, because they're both excellent fishermen. I mean, I would never try to go on a platform and say that I'm a better fisherman than them, but in that tournament, I finished ahead of both of those guys. And so what at the moment, what was like a major fear and an obstacle for me, something that I was hung up on the whole ride to my first spot. I was thinking about that. At the end of it, you look back and you say, okay, on any given day, you can compete with people. You just got to go out, keep your head down, not worry about who you're fishing against, and just deal with you and the fish. That was kind of like a big day one lesson for me. So it was pretty cool.
I could see how that would kind of throw you off your game, but at the end of the day, it is still fishing, right? They still got to bite.
Yeah,
still gotta
absolutely
control what you can control. That's it.
Yeah, it's a wild animal. God can make it open its mouth, or sometimes it cannot. You just got to put the odds in your favor and capitalize on the opportunities that you get.
I love it. So you got 2 tournaments coming up, Eufaula and in the St. Lawrence River. So each one of these completely different, spots in the United States. We might as well start with Eufaula. What are you looking to do there? And just so you know, this podcast will be out after you already went there, so don't feel like you're giving away any secrets or anything like that.
Well, for the 5th Open in a row, I've never been there, so it's going to be another first timer for me. Which Bass did that this year. They put kind of a weird schedule together. I like it. I was really excited about it, because I usually do better places I haven't been, and so that doesn't really intimidate me. But Eufaula, Oklahoma, I've seen some muddy water there and some pictures of stuff I've been looking up. I think it's going to be a little bit different than back home, deep clear lakes that I fish. However, there are, I know there's shallow willow bushes and things like that. I love to flip willow bushes. I also love to fish offshore. And so I think I've heard some stuff there. They bite a football head. They bite a 6XD really well. So I'll probably spend most of my practice at this point. I'm out of it for points. And so I'm really looking at it like two things. I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to make the Bassmaster Classic. I mean, I'm not doing it for fun. There's no reason to go out there and just catch as many as you can. So I think during practice, I'll probably idle most of the time, and try to look for a winning group of offshore fish, because I've heard that, it has been one offshore there in the past. And so that's probably what I'll do most of practice. If that doesn't work, I'll probably go flip willow bushes all day and see what I can come up with. So that's kind of my game plan going into it.
Nice. I love it. And then St. Lawrence River, this one's a little selfish because I am taking a trip up there, so I want to definitely get insights on that.
Yeah. Man, I have I've been up there one time. I was up there in a sight fishing tournament in college. The 1 year I fished the whole college tour. I weighed in 20 pounds the first day. And this is a funny story. So we were in it to qualify for the championship through points that year. We needed to finish about 60th. We catch 20 pounds in the first pocket we go into. I look at my partner. I said, okay, we're done. We're practicing for tomorrow. If we catch 20 pounds 2 days in a row, we'll definitely qualify. We had 19-15. We were in 99th place after the first day. And so I learned a lesson. No matter what I do this year, I can promise you I will never lay off of it. I'm going to keep pounding them until the tournament's over. But it's not going to be a sight fishing deal. It's going to be those fish are going to be post spawn. We're going to the second week of July. I'm confident with the deep smallmouth deal. I'm probably going to try to stay away from the current and look for some stuff, isolated rock and things like that. I can throw a Ned and a drop shot on. That's kind of what I like doing, finding isolated boulders. So once again, I'll probably spend a lot of practice behind the steering wheel, looking, and graphing, trying to find some off the wall stuff.
Nice. I like it. Great tips there. And I'll definitely be using that to my advantage when I'm up there.
Yeah. When are you going?
We were going last week of June.
Oh, dude, you're going to be sight fishing. No, don't listen to nothing I was saying. Go up there, yeah.
They're going to be spawning?
Yeah, look for her. Yeah, they will be. Look for stuff that's like right out of the current, right off the main river. Like bowls and islands and things like that. They should be laying everywhere. It should be pretty phenomenal.
You got me all excited.
Yeah, that should be pretty nice.
Awesome, dude. All right, Hunter, let's wrap it up here. I feel like I could talk to you for another 60 minutes, but we'll jump on and do another one of these. What's your PB largemouth and PB smallmouth? I always like asking that question.
Yep, I caught a 1021 largemouth on Chickamauga a couple of years ago under a dock in June. And it was actually a post-spawn fish. The landowner told me that he had watched it on bed for the last 3 days. So I skip under this dock with a mag draft and catch a 1021 on a mag draft. I land the fish. I'm like freaking out. I've never seen one anywhere close to 10. And the landowner says, "Man, I've been watching her on bed for the last few days." And he said, "I thought she was probably 13 or 14." And honestly, she may have been close had she not been, super spawned out. I mean, it was an absolute freak of a fish. But so that was my biggest largemouth. My biggest smallmouth, you're going to probably laugh at me. I've lived on Cherokee Lake my whole life, and I've smallmouth fished for forever. I've caught a 415. I went up north, and we had 20 pounds. I had cookie cutter, 4-pounders. I've never caught a 5-pound smallmouth, and so hopefully we'll break that one when I go up north this year.
All right, Hunter, let's wrap it up here. Where can people find you on like social media and all those different outlets to just follow along with your story?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. All of them are at Hunter Sales Fishing. Nowadays we got to play the YouTube game, trying to grow the following. Same thing on Facebook. I have a fishing page at Hunter Sales Fishing, and the same thing on Instagram. Pretty active on all three, and that's where you can find me at.
Cool. Hunter, I appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck with the Opens and then also college bass fishing, your team over there. And I appreciate you taking the time, and I'd love to have you on an episode down the road too. So do a little wrap up of how the Opens went.
Yeah, Eric, I would love that, man. I appreciated the time. I had a great time with you. Got to tell some fun stories. Hope everybody listening enjoys it. If I can ever do anything to help out, reach out anytime. Maybe we'll do a wrap up after we win one of these Opens. So we'll see. I
love it. We're after that 5-pound span now.
That's exactly right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I love it, Hunter. Thanks, man.
All right. Yes, sir.
You just listened to the Fishing Fanatics podcast with your host, Eric Stewart. Feel free to check out our other podcasts and our other interviews on our channel on Spotify, YouTube, and much more. Check out our Instagram page, TikTok, and Facebook as well.